Well, it is time to head back home to Florida where the sun is shining. We have endured the cold. We were brave. We were strong. We're very weak is what we didn't found out. It is not comfortable at all. It's 55 degrees right now, which doesn't sound too bad, but man, we are freezing. So we're very excited to be back in the warmth. So let's take a look and see how far we're gonna make it tonight. And I'm gonna make some changes to the recommended route and I will show you all of that. All right, so if we take a look here, we have got a ways to go. And what it wants us to do is stop here on the south side of Indy to make it to Louisville, but actually it would make us skip Louisville. We're not going to do that. Down here in Louisville, we can hit this supercharger and we should be able to make that. So I'm going to add that as a stop and see if it can figure out on its own that I don't want to stop in Indy. And it looks like it does. It says we'll arrive at 11%. It is 143 miles, a little over 2 hours. And at 65%, that should be doable. So my plan is we're gonna try to make it to somewhere, well, that's Cookville. We're not gonna go that route. We're gonna peel off and head to Nashville, and then we'll take Nashville route. So probably around right after Nashville is where we're going to stop, somewhere by Murfreesboro. And there's a lot of hotels, many with chargers that I've had success with right in that area. So we'll start looking into that. I'm going to try to drive till about 2 a.m., which will be 1 a.m. on the screen because that is Central Time down in Tennessee.
I do want to take a moment though to thank the sponsor of today's video, Drive Protected Shop. As you know, we wrapped all of our vehicles in PPF to help protect it from rock chips and scrapes and scratches. And just recently we actually had somebody do a little bit of a hit and run in the front of our car, and thanks to the PPF wrap we have on, it protected the paint as it's designed to do, saving us literally thousands of dollars in paint work just by having this wrap. And the repair is so much easier. I don't have to paint anything, just replace this panel. And right now code BTG is good for 30% off, which is more than normal until November 27th at midnight. And all orders over $300 will automatically be entered to win an Autel charger from Drive Protected Shop. This crazy deal is good on all wraps, including matte, just like we did our Model Y. So if you're into that stealth look, that is also included in this 30% off. So thanks again to Drive Protected Shop for sponsoring this video.
So that's the plan. We're hoping for a nice smooth drive. It is a little bit drizzly. It is very cloudy. It's been cloudy the whole time, but it's starting to drizzle and possibly rain very soon. So hopefully it'll be a smooth sailing all the way to Louisville, and we will catch you right over there. So here we are at the first charging stop in Louisville, and we're supposed to be here for 35 minutes, but that is not going to be the case, and it's kind of a mess. So here's the thing. It wants us to go to Cookville, Tennessee, the straight south route, which we're not going to do once this thing loads. But the problem is when I add charging, it is suggesting we need to be here for like an hour, which is not right. That can't be right. So anyways, let's see here. So if I grab the Smyrna, that's the Nashville. Let's just add this one. This used to be the one that I would go to back in the day. Let's see what that would do. So it wants us to charge for 40 minutes. It's 170 miles. So looking at the map, we could do one of two things. We could either stop at Bowling Green, which is only a V2. That would be the only V2 we would use on this whole trip. Or, I mean, if we stopped here, this is not very far. This is 30 miles away. That's just not worth it. So I think what we're gonna do, since we are at a Meijer, I think we're gonna just let this thing charge up for a bit. Meijer is right there. I think that it might make sense to go ahead and get some dinner and kind of get ready for bed for the boys in the back. So I'm not gonna wait for 55 minutes though, regardless. So let's just let this thing charge up for a bit and we'll go from there once things get rolling. So this actually worked out all right. So we're wrapping up charging here to make it to Cookeville. Oh no, never mind, I haven't fixed this yet. So let's go ahead and fix this now. And if we wanted to go to Smyrna, let's see how much longer we would need to charge here. Okay, so let's fix this again. Let's go with Nashville. We'll try that one. And edit. Get rid of Smyrna. And that is a V3. And it's 166 miles. I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna go for Smyrna. And we're just gonna have to stop and top off just down the road. So we'll go for Smyrna, and then we're just gonna have to top off in Elizabethtown.
Now turn left onto Dorst Way.
All right, so that'll give us a short little leg over to Elizabethtown. We'll top off there and then hit Smyrna, and that'll get us back on track here. We're only 10 minutes off of what it was when we left, so that's not too bad. So I'm gonna go ahead and unplug. Obviously, we way overcharged to do this, but that's okay. Let's get unplugged and head to Elizabethtown. All right, so we've arrived here at the charger, and as you can see, we did make it to Smyrna, Tennessee. It actually just kept updating because efficiency was better than it was projecting, which is why I was confused when we left on why it didn't think we would make it this far. So I've also booked a hotel, and that will be our next stop. The nice thing about this hotel is it is in basically the parking lot of the Supercharger. It only has one charging station at the hotel, so if it's not available, the Supercharger's right there. So we need to be here for 15 minutes apparently to make it to the Best Western, which is only an hour and 28 minutes away. It's not very far, 83 miles. That last leg, we're talking about 186 miles, 70 kilowatt hours consumed, 374 watt hour per mile, which is kind of on the higher side, but we were in the mountains, and I apologize, I forgot the last leg before this one. So anyways, gonna get plugged in here behind the Exxon Mobil / Dunkin' Donuts here in Tennessee. All right, so we are wrapping up charging here at 53%. Hour and 16 minutes to get there, 83 miles, and that will be it for today. So I'm gonna go ahead and get unplugged, and we will get there just as soon as we can. I'm just gonna pick this up in the parking lot once we get All right, so we made it here at the hotel. Unfortunately, the one charger is being used. This is the first time I've actually not been able to use a charger at a hotel, but I knew going into this was going to be sketch because there's only one charger. So good for them that they were able to get it, and good for us because the Supercharger is right there. It's not far at all. As a matter of fact, you can kind of see it over there in the distance on the other side of that parking lot, like right over the fence. So it's not far at all. That little leg there was 83 miles, 32 kilowatt hours. 386 watt-hour per mile. We are finally up in the mountains, and we should be on our way down. Well, technically we already went down, so it's downhill from here is my point. We are pretty close to Chattanooga. If I show you what is left here. So we're just outside of Chattanooga, and then we will be south on our way. Here's the best part. So we are looking at, what is it, 12:40 a.m. It's Central Time. But the important part is 10 hours and 13 minutes later is when we should be home, including charging. So we're about 10 hours from home. So quite honestly, the good news is having only a 10-hour drive in the morning is pretty nice, because even though we're on Central Time, we'll be able to make it home at a really good time tomorrow. So probably going to come down here in the morning and take it over to charge for that 20 minutes while we're eating breakfast. I think that makes the most sense. It's not too terribly far over there. So that's what we're looking at. So for now, it's a little bit earlier than I'm used to, but we're going to go ahead and get some rest, and we will catch this back up in the morning. Well, we're ready to hit the road. Woke up early this morning here at the hotel. Last night, I did go to the Supercharger so that we were charged up this morning. And this was actually available this morning, so I topped off a little bit extra. Nothing really necessary. But let's take a look. We have about a 10-hour drive today, including charging. So let's look at where we're at. So the first stretch is straight into Atlanta, which is what it is. But we have plenty of charge. And I think that there was a V3 just outside of Atlanta that we might push it to in Morrow, Georgia. So we might switch it up a little bit so we don't have to stop in the city. But that'll take us down. And we have just a couple of charges today to make it home. Right now, as it sits, 7:16 Central Time, which is 8:16 Eastern Time. So we'll keep an eye on that and see how we're doing along the trip. So we've arrived, we've made really good time, and it is 14%. It's supposed to be here for 20 minutes to make it to Ashburn, Georgia, and then there's only one more charger after that. But it's, you gotta walk to places, but there are things here, so it makes it a decent stop. And looking here, 7:26 estimated arrival. That last leg, 172 miles, 60 kilowatt hours, 351 watt hour per mile. So we are making good time and hope to keep that going. All right, so we overcharged just a little bit getting some food, but that's okay. We are expected to arrive at 19%. It is 131 miles, almost 2 hours to get there. That's Ashburn, Georgia, which also, again, another V3. So gonna get unplugged here and keep on moving. All right, so we made it to Ashburn, Georgia here, still making excellent time. It is showing 7:21 p.m. arrival. This is Eastern too. So, I mean, we're almost an hour ahead of schedule from this morning, which I have no idea how we pulled that off. But last stretch there, 131 miles, 45 kilowatt hours, 341 watt hour per mile. And yet again, another V3 here in the back of a truck stop. So gonna get plugged in. Definitely stretch the legs. Supposed to be here for 25 minutes. We will take that full 25 minutes and get out of the car for a little bit. So let's get plugged in. We finally hit some sunshine. We literally have not seen sunshine since we left Florida. Like leaving Florida, as soon as we left the state, cloudy. And it's been cloudy since. We're in Georgia right now. This is our last stop in Georgia. Next stop is Florida, but it feels so good. It's like 72 degrees. It's a little bit cooler side, but it's just perfect weather. So we're done charging here. So that means one more stop to go. Let's take a look at the screen here. So that gets us to our next stop at 20%, and I might push it a little bit. We'll see. I'll get on the road and mess with that. But 2 hours and 9 minutes to get there, 155 miles, and we are ahead of schedule still. If we got home at 7 o'clock, I'd be amazed. So we'll just keep moving along and keep going. So we made it here to our last charging stop, 13% here in Gainesville, Florida. And that last leg was 163 miles, 58 kilowatt hours, 356 watt hour per mile, which is impressive considering how fast I was going, which you did not see on camera. But it is in the back of a Burger King parking lot, which is interesting, but there's like gas stations and restaurants all over the place. So decent spot. We're only supposed to be here for 15 minutes, but it is our last stop. So I'm gonna probably be here for 25 minutes. I don't know. We'll charge it quite a bit, and then we will not stop anymore on the way home. So let's get this thing plugged in, grab something, and finish this up. Not gonna lie, this has got to be one of the prettiest parking lots in a Burger King anywhere. Very, very pretty. Gainesville area looks to be very nice. So this new one here on the 39th Street stop, definitely worth it because it's V3, but also what a nice area to just get out of the car, stretch your legs, and get some fresh air. So I'm charged now to 76%, and that'll get us home at 33%. We sat here and ate for a little bit, so it was worthwhile. An hour and a half, it's only 102 miles left to get home. And as you can see, right now, only one spot that looks like there might be some traffic, but it is 5:47, so I would expect to see that start to die down by the time we get down there. So I'm gonna unplug now our last charger, our last V3 charger, as they've all been, and we'll finish this up, and I'll catch you when we get home. So we've made it home. Actually, we got home about 30 minutes ago, and I've emptied the car. I've actually cleaned the car too. I can't stand a dirty car, and as long as it's not like 2 or 3 in the morning, I do it right away just to get it done, just to get it out of the way. So let's take a look at the trip and let's conclude, because I think that there are some takeaways on this trip, on some things I really want to talk about, because there were some things that were not so great on this trip, and I want to make sure I cover those as well. All right, so that last leg there was 102 miles, 36 kilowatt hours, 349 watt hour per mile, pretty good. So overall, this whole trip, 2,085 miles, 741 kilowatt hours consumed, 356 watt hour per mile. And like I've said before, a trip just like this in our Model Y is about 325 to 330. So call it 30 watt hour per mile less, at least for efficiency, 30 watt hour per mile more efficient than the X, which is nowhere near the difference of the battery pack, meaning this car definitely goes farther on road trips. Plus, when you add in the fact of how quickly this thing charges, it's just such an awesome car. So the trip, as usual, was super convenient. It was great, and this car is just a road trip machine. It's super comfortable with the air suspension. The added space is much appreciated when you have the whole family with you, and the amount of stuff you can fit in this is insane. It's very comfortable, it rides nice, but even better, it charges super fast, and that's one of the things that makes this one of the better road trippers, because you see, when you plug into a V3, you hit 250 kilowatt at like 11%, and then you stay at 250 kilowatt all the way through like 33%. If I remember right, I was looking at about 70% state of charge before it dropped below 100 kilowatts. I mean, this thing just charges so fast, and it just speeds up the trip overall, number one. And number two, because it does have more range than the Model Y, and that's real world more range than the Model Y, it means you can charge for less time and have less charging stops altogether. It makes road trips faster, and it makes your charging stops a lot faster. So I think the longest you would have to have waited on this trip was something like 25 minutes for charging. So, I mean, it's just such an awesome car. That said, I want to cover a few things, because there were some things that I was not too crazy about on this trip that I haven't noticed before. Now, understand, I have full self-driving on this car, and I left full self-driving beta on for this entire trip, there and back. So when we were using autopilot, we were actually using full self-driving. We were actually using full self-driving beta. So the car was changing lanes by itself. It was heading where it needed to go. Now, I took over when we got to the exits. I didn't want to deal with anything, especially with my wife sitting right there. She doesn't have the patience for it. So I disengaged at the exits, but otherwise full self-driving was basically on the entire time, and that's beta. So it is really good at changing lanes when it needs to pass somebody. It is almost flawless. There were a few times where I went to go hit the turn signal myself, and like right at that same time, the car already turned on the turn signals. So it's very accurate, it's very good, and it figures out pretty well how to do that without slowing the car down, which is nice. But once it's past a car, it won't go back in the lane next to it. And this is one of the things that I've noticed about full self-driving beta. There are some compromises. So you have three modes. You've got aggressive or assertive. You've got basically, you've got a chill mode, you've got a regular mode, and then you've got an aggressive mode. Essentially, that's what you have. So if you keep it on aggressive, you'll have a smaller following distance. It'll not wait as long to do things. It'll just do them, and that's how I normally drive. But I also don't like to hang out in the passing lane when I don't have to, but you can't really select that. And there's a number of other things that would be nice, like how fast it comes up to a stoplight and how hard it hits the brakes because it's coming in too hot. Things like that you can't adjust because it's on a basic profile. You have 1 of 3 to choose from. So it won't get over. And here's another thing that I noticed, and it was actually super annoying on this trip. I would say something like 50% of the time, half of the time, when I was passing a semi and it was in the lane next to me, the car would hit the brakes pretty hard. So it was having a hard time trying to figure out if it was safe to pass a semi, and any little bit of movement from a semi, if he was this close to the line, this car would hit the brakes and it would hit it pretty hard. So it's jarring and it wakes everybody up, and my wife hates that, obviously. So the problem is, what I had to do to overcome that is, instead of getting comfortable, I just had to keep my foot over the accelerator the whole time so that I could override that. So every time I passed the semi, I had to have my foot there ready to accelerate. And you start to get a little bit better at figuring out when it's going to do it and when it's not. But I'm telling you, it was half of the time, and that's really frustrating. That is a step backwards from earlier this year. So we are sitting on full self-driving beta 11.4.4 on this car. So there is 11.4.7 out there, but I haven't heard much of it being much better than 4.4. So that is kind of frustrating. The other thing I've noticed is this thing's starting to hang out more on the right side of the lane. So it didn't really sit center. And when it was coming past a car in the lane next to it, it also seemed to want to come even closer. So it made it very sketch, because everybody's texting and driving. So everybody is touching that line at some point throughout the day, many times. And when I'm passing them, half the time they're texting and driving. So we get really close, and it's very on edge. Sometimes the car hits the brakes pretty hard. Otherwise, I take over and kind of yank it back into the center of the lane because it's just too close. And it's uncomfortable. I don't know why it's doing that. It has not done that historically in the past. And now, all of a sudden, it seems to want to hang out in the right side of the lane, which is no good because it's too close to the cars in that lane. Other than that, like I said, amazing car. This car is a road trip machine, especially if you have kids, if you have a family. It's hard to beat this for a road trip. It's super comfortable and plush and fast and charges fast and will get you to your destination pretty quickly. The navigation seemed to be pretty conservative. As you can see though, 356 watt hour per mile. I was doing 80 the entire time, if not a little bit more sometimes. That's incredible. That's really, really good efficiency for 80 plus miles an hour. The car is just performing miraculously. It does a great job. And I'm looking forward to the next road trip in this thing because it's just, not only does it look good, it feels good while it's going down the road. So thanks again for joining. There are a ton of road trips planned for the rest of this year and turning into the beginning of next year. And I'm so looking forward to sharing those with you. And I look forward to seeing you on those videos. We'll catch you next time.